Happy New Year, everyone. Hi, Roberta.
Hi, Laura. Happy New Year to you.
Thank you. It is our Transform Your Relationships show time. We have a great topic today, something that I think a lot about actually, which is resilience. And so I think it's a really great topic for the new year to start off and reminding ourselves what it is, where do we even have it, how do we attain it, can it be developed, and what are your thoughts on resilience?
Well, it's a really big deal because if you don't have resilience and life comes at you, you can hit the wall a lot quicker. And if you've had life experiences that have pulled you down, you may be even better at resilience or you may find it very paralyzing. So it's a really worthwhile topic.
Yeah, I think a great place to start is like to look at times in our lives when we've been resilient, really identify, because some people may feel really down and don't think they're resilient, but you may be more resilient than you give yourself credit for. So, like, where have you dealt with a breakup, a death, a loss of a job, and have you come through it? Have you still gotten up, gotten your breakfast, and gotten some stuff done? That is all demonstrating resilience, right?
It is, and it's sort of an edge there that you're certainly within your rights to go through a little bit of grieving, but then can you come out of it? Can you go into it and explore it and have your feelings and then say, all right, now I'm moving on. I have to integrate that experience and move on. And some people find that very difficult.
Yeah, I think you bring up an excellent point and to really highlight, which is being resilient doesn't mean you're not feeling sad, you're not grieving. It means you're actually being more present to your feelings, I think. You're being more engaged with them versus trying to numb them out or being at the effect of them like paralyzing you. So you're actually moving with that energy, you're utilizing that energy to sort things out, to get through it versus feeling just stuck in cement. Would you agree?
Hmm. Oh, I think that's absolutely true. And we have to accord ourselves that time to acknowledge what's going on. People who just tamp it down, dampen it down, bury it, it's going to work on their body, their energy, and they're thinking, oh, well, I haven't touched that. It's all fine, no problem. And they're putting on this false front to the world, but they have not given themselves, honored themselves, respected themselves enough to say, that was tough. That was really tough. And maybe we had some tears. Maybe we needed to have 4 hours of coffee with a friend to go through it a few times. That's worthwhile because you want to process it in real time, not not just bury it and then find that it's erupting and eroding over time. And then you have more work to do. So it's really an important process to acknowledge what's happening, acknowledge your feelings, then say, all right, now that I have done that and I've experienced that, what's next? How do I then integrate this experience into my life experience and move on?
Yeah, and sometimes I need to have a good cry in order to do that. Really like let myself go and then know that I'm not going to go down a big rabbit hole because I'm releasing it instead of suppressing it and letting it drive me down. But then, there's also certain things in our lives that will help us be kind of almost force us into resilience. Whether you have kids, you have to make a living, you're able to get up and do something during the day. So I think that's kind of once we are able to identify our feelings, we can then go into some resilient action, I guess I would call it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so. I think that once we have experienced the feeling, and then we start thinking, okay, what do I want for lunch? As opposed to, oh, it can be just as simple as that. Maybe it didn't take us down. We're not pulling the covers over our head for days or something, but we have a malaise. We just feel generally sad. There's a kind of global sadness. But usually for healthy people or relatively healthy people, they will experience that, and then they'll say, well, I can't live in this forever, so let's get up and have a shower. Let's move on. Let's make a plan with somebody and not talk about what I just went through. And you will do some things that will begin to say, I'm bouncing back, which is what resilience is. I've been through something, but I'm back. And when you can start saying that to yourself, recognizing the little windows of being back, then you're on your way again.
Yeah. And so let's talk about how resilient are you? How do you identify if you are being able to bounce back? Do you have like, we can identify those resiliency traits like one, do you have a mindset of hope or solutions or seeing what's possible? That would be one. What else would be another?
Well, how long does it take you to process something? Is it a healthy amount of time? And that's different for different people. But if you are still in deep grief over something that is really paralyzing you after a week, you might look for some help. That's a long time. Sure, if somebody that you really love passes, you're going to go in and out of it. But if you're staying at the bottom, not having some moments and then remembering, and having some moments then thinking about it again, but having fewer moments of thinking about it and more moments of moving on, maybe you need some help because maybe you'll get stuck there. And it'll be a great learning experience for you to integrate that experience. But to be resilient means that you can entertain more than one thought at a time. That, all right, I'm feeling all of this, and the kids need breakfast. I'm feeling all of this, and I remember that I have an exciting project at work. And so the balance starts to shift.
Oh, I
And
love.
that's the resilience meter kind of thing, how much time that I'm changing from how much time I'm spending in the issue to how much time I am able to focus on the present and the future.
Yeah. So there's a resiliency, and it doesn't mean you're not resilient if you're spending time in the problem, as long as you're trusting. Like if you have this attitude of like trust that it's going to work out, and at the same time, we don't want to spend a lot of time on the problem. But I love that. I like that meter idea that we have, that you can put your thoughts on more than one thing at a time. You're not just in the sadness and seeing no hope, but you have like this hopeful side of you that goes, yeah, there might be some hope here. There might be some solutions, and I'm willing to look for it. So this sense of willingness or trust that things are going to pass or into another phase that'll be a more
Mhm.
positive feeling in our body. I think mindset, like you talked about in these ways, is very key identifier of resilience.
Mhm. And, sometimes people have the realization that they're talking to a friend and they talked about something other than what it is they're going through. And they go, "Oh, I just made it for 30 minutes and I never mentioned it. Oh, I must be feeling a little better." And then being able to calibrate in that way and to realize there are some moments of sunshine in the darkness. And the other side of it is that after a certain amount of time, you may just realize that I need to turn myself around. This doesn't feel good. I am on the verge of wallowing, and I know that this is not healthy for me, so I will just go fake it till I make it, basically. I'll get up and make food, or I'll smile when I don't feel like it, and it's not denial at that point because you've spent some time actually feeling the feelings, and you just make a decision to change that calibration. Okay, life goes on. Let me become more present to it. And then resilience kicks in. Or, if you have something that maybe a breakup, as you said, well, you want to debrief that breakup with yourself and maybe a friend or a therapist and say what really happened. But it's not the end of the world. You've had breakups before, you've had losses before, you're still here. You, in the meantime, you did something that you were happy with or proud of or feeling good, and so you remember that, and you say, "Okay, the ups and downs of life, I'm down with the down and up with the up now. I am ready to move forward." And that's not dishonoring things. Resilience is being able to integrate the life experience and say, all right, now what?
Yeah, I love that. So what I'm hearing is some things that are resiliency boosters, getting into action, acknowledging where you are and where you want to be, and that it's okay. But I also thought that there's a resiliency killer here, and that could be guilt. Because if you have this peak moment, like it might not be a big peak, but it might be a little peak, like, oh, I didn't talk for, I talked about something else for 5 minutes. And then you feel this guilt come in and it wants to take you right back into the depths. And I've seen it happen where that's what prevents people from using these resiliency traits and getting back into it. What can they do to get through this guilt?
Mm. I tell my clients all the time, Laura, that in my books, guilt is a verdict, not a feeling. So you ask yourself, did I or did I not do something? That's when you can say, I'm guilty of not doing it, or I'm guilty of doing something I shouldn't have. But if you get into a feeling of guilt, change it. I mean, are you sad about it? Are you disappointed in yourself? It's not feeling guilty. Like, that's something that people like to put on you too. Like, you should feel guilty for a long period of time. Let's calibrate that within yourself. I either did or I didn't do something. I'm proud of it or I'm not proud of it. If I'm not proud of it, what would I do differently, and move on? But don't hang out there, because it's not, guilty is not a feeling, and you get no points for feeling guilty. Now, if you had certain kinds of parenting, it was built on guilt. You should always be feeling guilty. You should always be wondering, am I guilty or not? And, that kind of parenting, you know what I'm speaking of, that keeps you on the edge of guilt all the time. Well, you will internalize that and do it to yourself. And I really invite people not to do that. You just define what am I guilty of? Define the crime and then do the time and change. But don't think of it as a feeling. Try and snap out of that and give it a different name. I'm disappointed in myself. I think I can do better. I don't think I tried hard enough. Give it an actual specific name, not just I'm guilty, because it's a killer. As you said, it's definitely a resilience killer, because you can stay in that, and other people will want you to too. Say somebody passes away and somebody else is still miserably unhappy, and then you become happy and they say, didn't you love them? Well, yes, I did, but I have to integrate their passing. I don't love them any less because I can be happier on a day-to-day basis. But some people who won't get out of that state will want you to join them in it. And they'll make you wrong for not grieving long enough, for not being upset enough. And then, if you had a breakup, particularly with the hijackal people that I talk about, they don't ever want you to forget it. So they'll keep chiming in. I don't know how you could do this to me. What a horrible person you are, and will have all of that kind of thing put on you. And you need to have good skills to say, hey, that's your stuff, not mine. I'm fine with my decision, or I am recovering from your decision, and I am working on getting healthier every day. And so actually the truth is, in that breakup scenario, particularly with the hijackal, is I don't want to talk to you anymore.
Hmm. That's a really
Bye-bye.
good piece of advice. I really think you honed into something right there, that you guilt doesn't mean you love them. The guilt and love are not need to be kind of disassociated. Doesn't mean you love them less if you give up guilt. In fact, if you give up that guilt, you're able to love them more almost. You can actually see clearly and cherish the memories and be more of who you want to be and be better than you were in the past, because maybe that's one way to process the grieving. So let's talk about some resiliency skills. And before we go on to that, I really want to say this: when I've seen people in this state of so affected by their guilt, I think it's a perfect time to get help. I mean, like doing this work that you just said, it's not like you snap your fingers and you give up the guilt. Your guilt is so ingrained, if it's been programmed in from a child, like to unravel it, it's kind of like unweaving some sort of intricately woven fabric, and you really have to pull out the strands so you don't get knots in them, and make a big wad of a knot. You want to really, do this so that you can be the resilient, blossoming person, more loving person that your soul really wants you to be.
Absolutely. And all those words are really worth listening to again that Laura just said, because that is the way. We have 24 hours a day to decide how we want to live, to decide what state in which we want to live. And I mean emotional state, not physical, and maybe physical too. And then to know that I have to know where my self-care limits are. Like, you take care of your feelings, but you don't wallow there. You take care of yourself so that your body can be resilient when you're going through something that maybe is a bit emotionally depressing. And so part of the answer to how do you develop resilience is to do the best you can for your body and mind and spirit all the time, so that then when you have something that happens to you, you are not in a depleted state. You will heal much more quickly.
Yeah. Taking care of yourself, and especially when you're having those very challenging emotions, it feels like you're under and you're wanting to move to a new place. It almost feels like you're in the process of doing surgery on yourself. Like it's this surgical procedure. You need to be very gentle with yourself. You have to be really caring and conscious and slow and methodical, like whatever the word is for you, that is about treating yourself with kid gloves, like you're like an innocent baby in a neonatal unit, like you're that fragile at that point, and it's okay. But this is how we build the strength. We acknowledge this, and we know that you have in you this seed of strength, of healing abilities. I mean, our bodies and our soul, minds, and mental capacities have this ability to do that. So I think self-care is like the first aid for resilience.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, it's very important to be taking care of ourselves all the time. And we've talked about that a lot on this show. But it really adds to your baseline of health all the time, so that when something does occur, whether you get a cold or you get the flu or you get COVID or you lose your job or whatever happens, you're already at optimal level. So you have reserves. But if you don't do that, if you go full out, when my writing partner Charles and I wrote Soul Solitude, the first chapter is called Flat Out is Not a Rhythm. Right? And sometimes we just engage in life flat out and we don't take care of ourselves. And it's so important to remember that self-care is not selfish. And that's what you do for yourself in order to be able to respond to life in the healthiest way possible. And we want that. So if we're doing that, we will be resilient, or more resilient than we would if we hadn't taken care of ourselves on a daily basis. And taking care means having enough downtime, reflecting, having a good relationship with yourself, eating well, moving well, having some connectivity time with something larger than yourself. Maybe that's volunteering, maybe that's meditating, maybe it's both, but doing things that keep you in optimal shape in all ways, so that when something kind of hits you broadside, you bounce back better.
I would say the first step in a resiliency plan, from what I'm hearing, is like make a list of what do you want to do for that physical, spiritual, mental, emotional, parts of you for self-care. I love what you said. Take the downtime, do something for your body physically. So I'm in my mind making these lists so I can be the most resilient, have my reserves of resiliency ready to go at any moment and feel really good right now.
Yeah.
I love that. And then
Mhm.
I think we also need to tap into, okay, so what's this mindset? What's going up here? What's some skills that we can use in this new year to build our resiliency?
Well, if you have an internal dialogue that says, "Oh, everything happens to me." Okay, that's a mindset. So if our mindset is, I can accommodate anything, I can accommodate and allow things to be integrated into my life experience easily, that's a mindset. I'm up for the challenge is a mindset. Now, there are some people who are purists who say if I said I was up for the challenge, then, maybe I'm going to be hit with a tsunami. But I don't believe it's quite that refined. But knowing that you can count on you, that's important.
I have
That
a affirmation that'll pop in every so often. I have everything it takes to create anything I desire, and you can change it up into any way that works for you. I have
Mhm,
everything it takes to handle anything that comes my way, powerfully,
exactly.
effectively, and joyfully. Make
Mhm,
make your statements. Just practice saying them, like you said. The fake it till you make it. If your mindset goes in one way, as a hypnotherapist, I know to make it go in another way, you have to start digging a new rut in the
mhm,
in the neurons, right? A new
yeah,
pathway, as we call it, and or a rut in the road. You can think about it and let the other one wash away because you're using the new one more and you're creating
right.
that mental habit. I call it mental muscle. By just speaking it can really really help.
Yes. So that's why it's an inside job, right? That, you have to do you don't have to, you can be a slug if you want, but, you know, a wise thing to do is to say, "I have a lot of personal power." I think we have the personal power. I define it on my personal page on Facebook as that I have the right to decide on my thoughts, my feelings, my opinions, my actions, and that's what personal power is. I decide what I think, I decide what I do, I decide why I do it, and I reclaim my personal power in that way. It's not power over anyone, it's just I have the power to do these things as an internal measure. And if I do those things, then I'm in the top shape I can be. If I need help, I get help. So I get kind of a top up, I get a tune up and get that mindset back where it's actually functioning on my behalf the majority of the time. And I know how to get back to it. But if I just feel like everything bad happens to me, of course, the washer's gonna break. Of course, it got lost in the mail. Of course, I get every cold that comes around. That's like, bring it on. Look, I'm ready, just dump on me. So how do you want to get up in the morning? I used to say when I did a lot of work in the spiritual arena with folks, I would say you get two choices. You can get up in the morning and say, "Good God, it's morning." Or you can get up in the morning and say, "Good morning, God." What is your mindset? Where do you want to put your focus? Where do you pay your attention? and know that that creates different things in you. And yes, to just circle back to what we said earlier, it's really wise to say, this really hurts. Let me spend some time here and honor the feeling and see, that I have sat with it and I feel like I know it now. I've learned it. I understand what's going on. And now then, how do I integrate it and return to my regularly scheduled programming, right?
Absolutely. I love the ideas, me being hypnotherapist is, we have so much power here. How are we using it? The minute you shine a light on your own, how are you using your own power? How are you waking up in the morning? What are those thoughts? And then doing something about it. And here's what I recommend is you could either write a list or just think about where am I at right now? And it could be like, oh, I don't want to get up out of bed. I have so much to do, whatever it is, just get it out of your head for a moment. And then you can write it out, you could speak it out, you could think it out. Where do I want to be today? I want to feel more energy. I want to have great things happen like XYZ. I want to feel good in my body. Okay, great. Keep going with that list and don't make it too long, but make it really clear. So you may keep going in the same vein until you get the notion that you resonates with that energy. And then you ask a third question is, well, what can I do to get it? Like, what can I do? I do something that you always teach. I use that word I. It has nothing to do with anybody else.
Exactly. I think there's another piece we could add to this, Laura, is when something happens to us, and I've told people to do this for the last 20 years, when something happens and, using the things that you've been referring to and the pathways in the mind, there is a moment when something happens that you have a big choice. And if you can catch yourself at that moment, start with small stuff, not the big stuff, but catch yourself at that moment and say, for what might this be good? Instead of, oh, it's awful, terrible. Just say, but for what might this be good? Now, that's not being a Pollyanna. That's not denying that something happened. But if you just turn that corner and say, for what might this be good? Well, okay, my friend can't come and visit, and I was looking forward to the visit for a whole year, and this is terrible, and we won't connect, and I'll be lonely. Or what if there's an opportunity around the corner that I couldn't do if I had company, right? There's 360 degrees of choice as to how you respond. What are you choosing?
And you can always make this choice. I found I was doing this a lot yesterday for some reason in my head. I would think something, I would see something, I'd think something kind of negative about it, but I wouldn't say anything. I'm like, I know better than to say anything. I couldn't even get to my mind any question like, for what might this be good? But I'm like, just wait, Laura. At least I could at least train myself to wait. And then all of a sudden something else happened. And I was like, oh, good. I was wrong. I was wrong. And see, I was good. And then I acknowledge, see, here's the thing you want to do after. You ask either for what might this be good, or you wait. You acknowledge that positive result, like of waiting or looking for another opportunity. It's like, oh, and I took this other opportunity. I waited and look what happened.
Yes.
Somebody came to rescue us, or, like somebody appeared or something happened, or that wasn't the case because I think I was pre-anticipating the worst of something.
Sure.
Big things. If I was little, I can't even remember it. I do remember the sensations. And I was like, see, I waited. Good. I'm going to wait. And then I thought like, well, how can I prevent myself from even getting to that negative thought? So we keep building that muscle and those neural pathways to work for us. So this is such a rich conversation.
Yes, and it's such a 2022 because we have to be resilient. We can't be in a downer all the time about the pandemic. It's the way our life has gone in the last couple of years. It's the way our world has gone. We didn't do anything to cause this. It is nothing we're responsible for. But again, if you look at it for what might this be good, well, all right, here in California, of course, like so many places, we're dealing with Omicron. And so what would it be good for to stay more home for 3 weeks? Well, I could get a really good opportunity to start 2022 with a decluttered house and a great business plan and connect with all my friends on Zoom and do all kinds of things. Just regroup. It has some good. You can find it. But if we only sit with, ain't it awful and the world is going the wrong direction, then we're not doing our immune system any good. We have to remember that you're feeding your immune system ideas, either depressing them or, or raising it. So what do you want to feed it? I'm from Canada, and in the 80s or so, I met the work of Dr. Gabor Mate. And I got this book out a bit ago because he wrote this book, When the Body Says No, exploring the stress-disease connection. Well, here we're talking about stress, our interpretation of stress, then what it tells our body. Or if we don't bother to interpret it and just take it on and slowly crumble, what messages are we giving to our body? We want to remember that it's an inside job too, right? What are you doing that keeps your body healthy in terms of what you're telling your body? So there's no end to recognizing that resilience is a worthwhile thing to develop.
It sure is. And I have one more skill or action people can take that helps with resilience, at least I found it, is lifting other people up. If you feel down and you see somebody else who's down, what if you tried lifting them up? Or you go donate time somewhere, you volunteer somewhere, you donate money, you spread some good vibes, even though it's somebody who's not even down, but maybe they make a comment that was a
Or
little
maybe they're lonely.
or lonely.
Maybe you just think of someone, maybe they're alone. I could just call them.
Yeah.
Right? It's something you can do. And when you have an outward centered mindset that has good balance between outward and inward centered, you think of other people. You think about exactly that. So you may be feeling, well, take COVID, you may be feeling very isolated and all of that going on, but then say, who would be more isolated? Who could use a call? Somebody who lives alone or maybe is not well right now or whatever. And you could just be the little light in their day that will allow you to perk up and get outside yourself. And both of you will feel better.
Totally. Yeah.
So
You
it's a
need to
good,
go lift up other people, go call them, text them, write about them, write some poetry, do something that's uplifting for yourself and ideally others. You never know what a smile, even to a stranger, can do for their day and yours. So I love this
exactly.
conversation.
It's a great way to start 2022.
It is. And there's lots more resources we have for you. I know you have your community, you have your podcasts, you have checklists and
YouTube
downloads
channel. Yeah.
and YouTube channel. Oh my gosh. Start all, you can get them all at forrelationshiphelp.com. Would that be a great place to start?
It's a great place to start, and I hope everybody will celebrate with me. In the month of December, we hit 900,000 downloads on YouTube, views on YouTube. So, we're going to hit 1 million in this quarter, and that's very, very exciting because it means that you're reaching people who need something. They're voting by watching.
Mm.
And so think also when you're being resilient, what can I offer that could have value to other people? When Monday nights come around and I do my podcast live on YouTube and my Facebook pages, it's an upper for me, even though it is like something that needs to be done because I've committed to it. It is like, oh, today I get to do that. But for some people who will make a commitment like that, oh, I've got to do it. But just that shift, oh, I have the opportunity of doing this. It's my joy to do that. That's the kind of thing that can turn you around and turn other people around, to your point of lifting other people up.
Yes. Well, we look forward to lifting you up again in the next couple of weeks. So, and also you can always go to all of our videos at Transform Your Relationships on Facebook, Transform Your Relationships Live on Facebook. and of course on our websites as always.
That's it. So start 2022 on an upswing, no matter where you're starting from.
Great.
Move up a little bit.
And we'll move up together. Thanks, Rhoberta.
Thank you, Laura. Bye-bye.
Bye.